Here we go, jumping into Acts chapter 13. And I think we may continue the trend of saying things that are maybe a little controversial, but I think are important as we keep reading through Acts if we're going to learn what's really happening in this situation. And so even right at the very beginning of Acts chapter 13, verse 2, it says, "While they were worshiping the Lord and fasting, the Holy Spirit said, 'Set apart for me Barnabas and Saul for the work to which I have called them.' So after they had fasted and prayed, they placed their hands on them and sent them off." We'll keep going. Verse 4, "The two of them, sent on their way by the Holy Spirit, went down to Seleucia," don't know if I'm saying that right, "and sailed from there to Cyprus." Okay, so what I've noticed in these first 13 chapters of Acts is that almost everything the apostles do and that the followers of Jesus do is based on hearing the Holy Spirit, right? Like they just keep hearing from the Holy Spirit and doing what the Holy Spirit tells them to do. And we have the story that shows that they weren't totally sure whether or not it was okay to preach to the Gentiles or not until they saw that the Holy Spirit had fallen among them. And then they knew this is the real deal because they have the Holy Spirit. And so I guess what I'm trying to say that's maybe a little bit controversial is it sure feels like for the apostles, for the Christians who lived closest to Jesus, the way you knew that you were a Christian is that you heard from the Holy Spirit. You had evidence of the fruits of the Holy Spirit. You had the giftings of the Holy Spirit. And the Holy Spirit would occasionally fall upon you and upon your ministry. It sure seems like that was a very, very significant portion of what it meant to be a believer. And I don't know that we always see that anymore. Right now, like I said earlier, we tend to believe like, well, as long as you believe in Jesus and you've said a prayer, you're good. But at least for them, it mattered quite a bit if they saw evidence of the Holy Spirit in someone's life or not. And they believed that the Holy Spirit would lead them directionally, would tell them what to do, would tell them what to speak. There's a place further on in Acts chapter 13 when they're opposed. It says in verse 9, "Then Saul, who was also called Paul, filled with the Holy Spirit, looked straight at Elymas and said, 'You are a child of the devil and an enemy of everything that is right. You are full of all kinds of deceit and trickery. Will you never stop perverting the right ways of the Lord? Now the hand of the Lord is against you. You're going to be blind, and for a time you will be unable to see the light of the sun.'" So this is something he says because he's filled with the Holy Spirit. We can't just go around cursing people to blindness, right? We can only do that if we're confident that that's what the Holy Spirit is asking us to do. But there's just, I think, example after example after example in Acts that you have to be able to hear from the Holy Spirit. You have to be filled with the Holy Spirit to be a Christian and to follow him, or else we're just very ineffectual Christians if we can't hear God and follow him. So I'm throwing that out there. I know it is challenging. I know that that might be scary, that you may have a ton of questions about what that means or how you even go about trying to hear from God or how you could become baptized in the Holy Spirit. And those are all things we can address in the comments and talk about, but I think it's worth stating. And so, yeah, let's talk about it in the comments and then read Acts chapter 14 for tomorrow.